Everybody, in this video, I'm going to walk you through 20 findings I have found after working with almost 400 clients to help them dramatically improve their mental health on the 20 accelerants or breaks for your own mental health journey. If you don't know who I am, my name's Hicks. I'm a mental health coach. I help people improve their depression and anxiety. We usually get people a 75% reduction within about 90 to 100 days. And I was suicidal myself and overcame depression. So I make these videos because I want you to have the mental health you deserve. So in today's video, what I want to talk through here is I have this resource that I provide for every one of our clients as soon as they start on our program. And it really, has set them off on a really good track. And what I realized as I was looking at this little checklist of 20 things is I realized that this would be applicable to almost anybody who's on their own mental health journey. If you're applying some type of a method, if you're, just really sincere about you want to improve your mental health, then I want to provide some things I've found, some observations. So I call these I call this the road to strong lasting change. And then I call it the road to stagnation. So I have it kind of as like a left column and a right column. So if you're taking notes, that might be helpful because there's what you want to do on the left, and then what you don't want to do on the right. And each one of these is a solution for itself. So I've got the 20 things you don't want to do, and then, what you want to do instead. So we're going to cover each one of those. And so I compiled this because I put this together maybe about a year ago, and it was after we had done several hundred clients who had gone through our process, and I had seen some do better than others, and I had seen some people do it faster than others. And I got thinking to myself, I'm like, there's got to be a framework to describe what helps people reduce and eliminate depression and anxiety faster. And I realized I was looking back through all of the memories, and I'm like, yeah, these are all the things that slowed people down or sped them up. Okay. Now, I'll also add a caveat here that if you're doing any of these things on the road to stagnation, any of these 20 things, then it's okay, right? It's not that it's unsolvable. It's just that you now need to make a decision and move to the other side of the column, right? You got to do the other thing. So here's the first one. So the first one is decide, in quotes, that you're going to try to improve your mental health. This is the first big thing I see slows people down, is they overly use the word try, and they don't really understand what it means to actually decide to improve your mental health. So let me be clear. Every human being, myself included, okay, we all have a list of desires in our life. I'll use, for instance, weight loss as a common one, right? So very often people are not in the level of shape that they would like to be. So they have a preference, right, that is unmet. But in addition to having a series of preferences or desires, we all have a list of standards. We all have a list of things that we tolerate. So very often there's a mismatch between what we want and what we tolerate. And we tend to only think about what we want and then what we have, and we think that those are the only two buckets, right? So if you don't have the mental health that you want, what you've probably done, and by the way, I have zero judgment on this because I've done this too, and it's totally understandable. But what happens for most people is they try to improve their mental health. So the attitude is, yeah, I'd really like to reduce my anxiety. I'd really like to reduce my depression. I'd really like to feel more joy, motivation, etc. But then we go into a series of blaming other things, like blaming our circumstances or our past or our parents or some type of thing. And what we're doing when we go into that story of justification is we're tolerating a lower standard for our mental health. Now, again, zero judgment. You probably weren't even consciously aware you were doing this, number one. Number two, the mental health industry has perpetuated this myth for decades that if you do currently feel depressed or anxious, that's just how you're going to be for the rest of your life. That's what 90% plus of therapists are going to tell you. And that pretty much all you can do is improve it by, maybe 25% or something. So it's totally understandable that you've had this idea of, well, I just can't. Right? Because when you believe I can't improve, then that's what causes the try mentality. It's like, well, I don't really think I can improve, but I guess I'll try. Right? And what try means is I'm going to put forward effort until it feels difficult, and then I'm going to give up. Right? And we all do this with things in our life. And that's why we end up not getting what we want, but we do always get what we tolerate. So we will tolerate trying and then giving up, even if it's not what we want, right? And so you don't want that for yourself. So the first big thing I always tell my clients when they first get started, and honestly, I don't even take them on as a client until they agree to this. I say, look, if we're going to do this process, we're doing the process, right? That's it. We're not trying. We're not going to give it a go. We're not going to, just see how it goes. We're not going to dip our toe in the water, as I like to say, right? You can't dip your toe in the water with mental health. Like, imagine this. Imagine if you were 50 pounds overweight and you were going to try to lose 50 pounds. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to maybe lose 5 pounds and then gain it back, or lose 10 and then gain it back, right? You try to cut, processed foods out of your diet. That doesn't really mean anything, right? You're going to maybe do it for a week or so and then give up as soon as it feels difficult. That's what I mean. Try as we put forward effort till it feels difficult. So if you really want to live a depression and anxiety-free life, you can do that, but you have to commit to the process of getting that done. That's the very first thing, is you got to make that switch. Okay. Number 2, blaming someone, some event, or something else for not having the mental health that you want. So the common ones are another person or an event. And then the third most common is ourselves, right? We blame ourselves. But the key thing you want to remember is blame never empowers you. Blame never improves anything. It's just not going to help you. What you have to do instead is take responsibility. Now, I want to be clear about my definition of responsibility, because that may sound like, offensive, like, oh, you're not taking responsibility. But here's what I really mean. Because again, I've done this too. So responsibility, think of responsibility as response ability, right? Ability to respond. Okay, what that means is, your mental health right now, today, is where it's at. Like, where your finances are at right now, where your relationships are at right now. Yeah, that's where it is at right now. But you can take responsibility. You can take up the ability to respond to how it is today and make it better for tomorrow, the next week, and so on. And very often what people are doing is they're not doing that. They're not taking their power back to improve their mental health. They instead, what our mind wants to do is, we don't want to feel, it's too difficult for us to face the idea that we could change, but we're not changing. And so what our mind will do to save us from the pain of like going, oh my gosh, I could change, but I'm not, is we come up with a story that justifies why we're not doing what we need to do to change. Now, by the way, everybody's on a different leg of their journey, and I don't know where you're at right now, all right? There's the leg that we're all at times where we're just kind of in learned helplessness. We're like, nothing's going to help. I'm not going to do anything. Then there's the mode where it's like, no, I really, really want to get better, and I'm looking for answers and I'm looking for solutions. There's the mode where you're really trying and testing things and seeing what works for you. So please don't get offended by this. I'm just simply saying this is one thing that you might be doing, right? Or at a minimum, it's something you might have done in the past, or it's something you might do in the future. So you want to know how to solve it. Don't get yourself caught up in blame. If you ever find yourself blaming something, it's time to move back into the zone of responsibility and say, well, okay, look, I don't like this, but what can I do? What can I control to make this better? That's another little tip too, right? Like, focusing on what you can't control will always make you feel anxious and stressed, and it just doesn't help you. Okay, number 3 thing that will lead to stagnation of your mental health. Expect your mental health to improve easily, automatically, or within the first couple of times a strategy is used, and then get mad when the results don't happen as soon as you hoped. Here's what my experience has taught me. You can get the mental health you want, but you have to be willing to learn how to train your brain. And training your brain is like building a muscle. You've heard me say that before, all right? It takes time. It takes a little time. It doesn't have to take your whole life, but it does take a couple of months at least to do it properly, okay? So the big reason why this creates stagnation is you can probably relate to this, right? Where you start implementing a method, you start feeling a little progress, and then maybe you hit like day 10 or day 20 or whatever, and then you start feeling a little anxious or a little sad, and what you do is you compare yourself to an ideal of how you think you should be. And because you compare yourself to this big, giant ideal, you feel super, super small and like a failure. And then you go, what's the point? And you give up. right? And that's why we have this mantra in my program, which is progress, not perfection, right? You have to focus on the incremental gains, moving from here to here. See, because if you're trying to go from here to right here, then all of a sudden you feel proud of yourself when you move up and move up. But if you create this mental construct of I need to be way here, and you're looking up at that, you're like, oh my gosh, it's not going to happen, right? So that's why we say when you're climbing the mountain, don't stare at the top, right? Look right in front of you and keep taking steps forward. Okay, number 4 thing that will slow your mental health journey down is making excuses. Okay, and we all do it. I've done this before when I was suicidal and all of that. I was doing all of these things, right? So it happens from time to time. And it can happen even if you're making progress and then you have a slightly bad day or an off day, right? You can get yourself in trouble. That's why I call it the road to stagnation and the road to lasting change, because if you're not careful, you can slip into it, but you want to catch it and then, go to the solution. So don't make excuses and don't put off doing the work, right? What you need to do is stick to your schedule for implementation of whatever method it is that you're picking. Now, of course, you got to pick the right method for you, right? And figure out what that is. But if you've decided you're going to use a method, you got to stick to it. Can't expect results to happen without consistency. Okay. Number 5, road to stagnation item is letting interruptions become excuses for delaying doing your work. So what a lot of times people will do is they'll say, okay, great, I'm going to meditate every day and I'm going to see if that improves my mental health. And they go, 2 or 3 days, and then their kid gets sick. And because their kid gets sick and a little disruption occurs, they go, oh, well, yeah, I want to meditate, but my kid got sick. What am I supposed to do? And so it's easy for us to let our minds create an excuse and justify why we now just need to give up on something. But remember, you have to evaluate what really matters to you, right? Like if you truly, truly, truly want a 6-pack, you gotta do crunches like probably every day or several times a week. It's just gotta happen, right? So if you're being honest that you really want a depression and anxiety-free lifestyle, you have to find the method that's going to work for you to make that happen, and you got to stick to it. And that means, yes, you're going to have disruptions. Like recognize that disruptions are just a part of everyday life, and have a contingency plan is what I've found works great for my clients. So here's what I tell them. I say, get your weekly hours in on your lessons and your assignments, no matter what, even if you have to make a small adjustment to your schedule. So if you planned on doing your mental conditioning from 9 to 9:30 that day, maybe you need to do it from, okay, great, your daughter's sick, she's home for the day, maybe during a nap, right? You go and do it. So you just got to be flexible, okay? People very often, because they're inflexible, think of how skyscrapers are built, okay? Most of them are built with a little bit of flex so that when winds occur, they're able to be stronger, right? If they didn't have that flex, they would break. And that's what happens a lot of times with people on their mental health journey. They have no flexibility. They think it's all or nothing, and then, they cave in. Okay, number 6. This is written for our clients. The way we wrote it is don't have an accountability partner or leverage your environment to create accountability. For you, it's the same concept, right? We all need accountability. What you can have is external accountability that eventually becomes internal accountability, like accountability to yourself. But you just got to be honest with yourself about what you're going to need to actually follow through on what you need to do to stick to your mental conditioning routine or whatever method you're going to be using. If it's meditation, great. If it's, some type of self-administered thing, great. If it's a different program, go ahead and do it. But we use an accountability partner system with our program. So we pair people up with somebody who helps hold them accountable. And then obviously me working with them gives them accountability. You can do it with your boss. You can do it with your spouse. You could even do it with your kids. Tell your kids like, hey, I want you to ask me if I did my homework earlier today. And that can help with accountability too, and whatever mental health method you're using. Okay. Number 7, beat yourself up for thinking you did something wrong, or for not being consistent enough, or for having an off day. So essentially beating yourself up. So on your mental health journey, you're going to pick a method, and as you're using that method, you might miss a day, or you might, get into your head about whether you're understanding it or using it properly, right? Or you might just have like an off day. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, or who knows. And it's going to be very easy for you to go, oh gosh, I'm the problem. But that's the fastest way to feel totally overwhelmed, and you don't want to do that. So instead, have fun and celebrate every little step that you have of progress, right? And then what we said here too is focus 5% on the problem and 95% on the solution, right? If you get off track, no problem. Just focus on what you can do to get back. Okay, number 8, the way you can slow your mental health journey down is constantly measure your progress and compare it to other people and where you think you should be. And this is just a general mental health rule universally, right? Comparison is the thief of happiness. If you're on social media and you're comparing your journey to somebody else, or if you're in a program and you're comparing your progress to somebody else or some case study or whatever it is, then very often you can be missing the point, right? You should be focusing on what helps you improve, not comparing yourself to somebody else. Number 9, you'll start feeling better and then use that as an excuse to slow down or not continue doing what you were doing that got you feeling better in the first place. We've all done this with our mental health, right? The antidote to that is when you start feeling better, recognize that that is an indication you're doing something that works. And if you want to keep feeling better, you got to keep staying consistent with what is working for you, okay? Number 10, wait too long to get support, don't ask questions, and spiral, right? A lot of times I really have to hammer this in with new clients as I tell them, like, look, if you feel lost or confused in the first couple of weeks, you gotta text me, gotta let me know, gotta speak up, right? Ask the community, ask for help. Because otherwise we get into this headspace where we get mad that we're even feeling confused. Like we think that we should know the answer and we don't want to be a pest or a bother on other people. And then that just spirals us deeper and deeper, right? So whatever method you're using, whatever process you're working, right, you got to make sure that you're leveraging whatever forms of support you possibly can, right? And by the way, if you're not sure where to turn, we have all sorts of online communities, including this one where you're viewing this. Like, just write in a question and we're happy to help you as well in whatever way we can. Okay. Number 11, engaging in the lessons while being distracted or in a low energy state where retention dips. So we have video lessons through our processor program to apply it more generally for whatever you might be doing for your mental health. Just doing it half-assed, right? Like not, like having your TV on while you're supposed to be doing your journaling or something. Like it's just not, you're not going to get that much out of it, right? So don't sleepwalk through what you're doing. Try to be as focused as you possibly can with whatever it is that you're doing. Number 12, spend way too much time on whatever the method is, trying to seek perfection, right? So I had this problem with clients early on where I'd give them a simple little assignment and they'd overthink it and they go, I got to get it exactly right. And I would say, no, you don't have to get it exactly right. It's like working out your mind, like going to the gym. You wouldn't go to the gym and if you have a flabby bicep, like overly stress out of like, oh my gosh, what's the perfect way I should work my bicep out? It's like, no, you just need to go lift some weights, right? Go work your biceps. So our process is based off mental conditioning. I'm a big believer that that's the only way you're going to get depression and anxiety free in your lifetime. Whatever method you're using, don't overthink it. Don't get hung up on perfectionism, right? Remember, perfection is usually just another word for insecurity. 13, intellectualize that you already know something and hunt for new information instead of looking to master and implement what you already know. So one of my mentors, taught me that we very often need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. Like most people it's not that they don't know what to do, it's that they're not doing what they know. Chances are there are certain things that you need to be doing for improving your mental health, but you're not doing them right now. So that's a fast way to speed it up, is just start implementing more. Number 14, flying through the lessons too quickly with hopes of reaching the end faster as opposed to mastering each skill. So what we teach people is a skills-based process, and I've seen this with other people as they go through programs in the mental health industry, is a lot of times people get in this headspace where they want a shortcut right to the end, and they're like, let me just zoom through everything, and that's just not how it works, right? Like the metaphor I like to use is, imagine if you had a textbook for math. Right? If you just speed read through the entire textbook, you're not going to know how to do math by the end of it. If you do a chapter, then do an exercise, then check your work, then get feedback from the teacher. Okay, great. It's going well. Cool. Move to chapter 2, right? That's how kind of our program works. And if you're going to be administering a method with yourself, you need to be having that same type of commitment to mastering the skills, not just memorizing the information. There's a big difference there, okay? Number 15, don't stick to your, hold on one sec. Oh, right. So for us, we have about a 90-day to 4-month timeline for our folks. So the thing here is not sticking to that timeline, turning in things late, right? So not super applicable for you. 16, stay a recluse and spiral in your head as opposed to participating in the community, getting advice, getting help, getting support. Okay, chances are whatever you're doing in your life for your mental health, there are people that you can be speaking to, getting guidance, getting feedback, getting reassurance, getting encouragement. If you don't have that, plug into our online communities. We've got plenty of people who will help you. Don't stay inside of your own head. Remember that the level of thinking that got you into the problem is not going to get you out of the problem. You can't solve a problem by staying in your head. You got to get out of your head. Okay. 17, a fast way to be a detriment to your mental health is believe that you should have all of your goals met by the time you reach the end of every single lesson. Pretty much a different way to say what I already said earlier. 18, make perfection the enemy of the extraordinary. Right? This is why we teach people you can have extraordinary mental health. You're just not going to have perfect mental health, right? We're all going to have moments when the outside world or somebody pisses us off or affects us, and that's going to trigger us a little bit, but we can get rid of the spirals of anxiety and depression. Okay, 19, get frustrated after not getting results with a few repetitions of a skill and quit asking for help and applying the tools, right? So if you feel like you've been using a method, here's the rule I have found, and I found this works very often, right? I call it the rule of 100. If you have been implementing a method truly to the letter, right? Like you've been doing what that method is telling you to do for 100 days, and you have not seen a substantial improvement in your mental health, I'm talking like at a minimum 25%, right? Hopefully 50% or more, then it's probably an indicator you're not using the right method. If, however, you know of a method intellectually and you just haven't used it for, a couple of months, then chances are it's not gonna, that's your problem. It's an implementation method problem. So very often I'll talk to people and they've been like, oh, I've been in therapy for 6 years every week. And I'm like, and you're still feeling the way you were 6 years ago? They're like, yeah. I'm like, why are we continuing to believe that that's the only thing you need to be doing, right? So for some people, therapy is all you need, and that works great. For some people, it's not. You just got to figure out what it is, okay? And then number 20, allow the standard for yourselves to drop and for yourselves to mentally quit before you reach the finish line. And I wanted to finish that one because I think that's honestly where people really lose track, right? It's easy for us to get frustrated and discouraged. We've all been there. I was there too. And it's easy in those moments to just conclude, I just can't do it. But what I want you to remember is you absolutely can have the mental health you deserve, and you deserve to have it, right? You deserve to live a life where chronic anxiety and depression is not running your life, right? Where you do feel joy and peace of mind consistently. You can have that. You absolutely can do that, but there are things you've got to be willing to do to make that happen. So these are the tips we give our clients, and I'm sure that many of them will be helpful for you. And what I would love, if you found any of these helpful, please, either like or comment on this. I'd greatly appreciate it. Every engagement that our videos get, it helps somebody who's in dire need of mental health advice to see this content. And so it really helps you pay it forward. So we're appreciative of any engagement you give us. Please, if you have questions, add those in the comments. And I hope this was helpful to you. So I'll talk to you in the next video. See you soon.